We're 8 practices, I believe, into camp. We're growing, but by no means are we ready for competition yet. But we're in the process, and I think guys need to continue to embrace the process, all right, and grow every day and show our traits. With that, I'll take any questions.
Coach, with Omar Speights, he's a guy who's traveled around quite a bit, Philadelphia to Oregon, now to Louisiana. Does that sort of worldliness he have, does that sort of translate to the field at all, that maturity?
I've been pleased with Omar. You definitely see a level of maturity. I think the spring was big for him to fit into Coach Kelly's program and, our mission and how we go about doing things. And I think you're seeing him in training camp really embrace that. But you definitely see a veteran presence from him.
Hey, Coach, I want to ask you about a couple of statistics. Turnovers forced and third down defense. How do you feel about those two numbers from last year, and what would you like to see from those moving forward?
Both of them we got to improve drastically. That's 2 areas that have been a point of emphasis. Get off the field, I believe we were in the 70s, which isn't good enough. Last year, if you look at the number one team in the takeaway defense, it was Illinois, and they had 2.4 takeaways a game. They allowed 12.7 points. So there's a direct correlation there. Both are being emphasized like crazy.
Matt, Wilson Hunter from the Advocate. You obviously have quite the competition going on at cornerback. Is there anybody at this point you feel like is really maybe standing out and sort of earned some kind of a role, or where do you feel like you're going to have to maybe make that decision?
Yeah, I think guys are still competing for roles at this point. You see good things out of them. What we're looking for is consistency. Day in and day out, exhibiting our traits. And really being the guy that you can count on every snap. We've had guys that have flashed. Deuce strung a couple practices together earlier this week. I got to get in and watch the film. Ashton Stamps is growing up fast. Zee has done some good things. We just got to continue to grow.
Coach, I think from coaches and players alike, especially guys that were new last year, coaches and players alike, comfort is a huge thing. We've heard a lot of guys mention that. Do you feel that? Do you feel a little bit different this year? And if so, has it allowed you to put maybe a little bit more scope into what you're doing with certain guys this year?
Yeah, I think comfort's kind of a relative term. I don't think anybody ever wants to be comfortable, but what you do see is you understand the expectations, right? We're not all trying to learn Coach Kelly's program, and really we now know exactly what our traits are and what they look like, okay? Exactly what our process is and what it looks like. Now, there's an expectation for those that return that we take that to the next level.
Coach, over here, what goes into striking a balance with a player like Harold, whether it be having him rush the passer or drop into coverage, like playing a linebacker? What goes into trying to split his time?
Yeah, I think right now you're at the process where you're teaching him to play multiple positions, right? And then when you get into a specific game, you see what fits the scheme to stop that team and what he does well. Really not just for Harold, but all our players. Where you're looking and trying to define roles, you're trying to find things that they can be successful at. What do they do well? What do they need work at? And what do you learn from them? And try to put them in those positions. And that's really what the summer's all about.
Hey, Coach, Glenn West right here. You got a lot of young players competing for time. I'm just curious if you've seen anything out of some of the freshmen, J.B. Toviano, Ashton Stamps, DeSean Womack. Are there any young freshmen that are kind of standing out to you in this fall camp?
Yeah, excited about that class in general. I've already spoke to Ashton. Ashton's a football nut. He's a guy that when you teach him something, he grabs hold of it. DeSean Womack's had great energy. Jackson Howard, he's another one that is a guy that has continually gotten better practice to practice. Whit Weeks, Christian Braithwaite. That class we're excited about. They've done a nice job. Now, with that being said, they're freshmen, right? So this next week will be huge for them. As you know, this next week we get 6 right in a row, and we got to grow a bunch. And that goes for the whole defense, but in particular the freshmen.
Yeah, Matt, right here, just the effect of Mason Smith back on the line, just how it affects the whole defense, the scheme, everything.
Yeah, you know, as we all know, Mason's got elite size and athleticism for a big man like that. He'd be the first to tell you he's knocking some rust off, right? This is really, if you look at it, the first 8 practices he's had where he's been able to go 11 on 11 for a year. But what you do see is that size and that athleticism. Now, he's just like anybody else. He's got improvement to be made. You know, I think he would tell you right now, if he looked at you, he wants to improve his pad level. Like at times right now, he's playing high.
Hey, Coach, right here. So, you know, the defense has lost a couple of veterans, such as Mekhi Garner and Jarek Bernard-Converse back in the defensive backfield. What does it mean to have a player like Andre Sam back there?
Yeah, really, really pleased to have Andre. Love his energy, love his veteran presence. I love his buy-in. You know, he's a guy that has embraced everything we do here. It's been great to have him, and I think he's going to be an integral part of what we do.
Hey, Coach, Jay Sojourn from Gridiron Football. Talking about Major Burns and just his versatility. I know I saw him working with you and the linebackers a little bit, and also being a safety as well. Just talk about the versatility that he really brings in another year.
Yeah, you know, Major's improved, and you know he's a guy that his length and his speed give the options to do different things, and he's also a guy now where it's time to take his development to the next level, where it's beyond just what's my job, but it's seeing the bigger picture. And understanding what offenses are trying to do, understanding how situational football plays a role, and then how you can take advantage of it.
Following up on these safeties, just how interchangeable do you feel like your safeties and nickels are at times, and what does that allow you to do defensively?
Yeah, you know, Coach Cooks does a great job, but during camp, we're trying to move those guys around, and we're trying to do that to create depth and competition, okay? You sort of broaden your horizons as a football player when you see things from different views, right? And that makes you multiple on defense. So with those guys that have played a lot of football, the Majors, the Dre Sams, the Greg Brooks, even Sage Ryan, yeah, we're moving them around and we're challenging them to learn.
Losing a guy like B.J. Ojulari isn't trying to replace him isn't necessarily easy. What kind of progress have you seen from Ovi Agofu and Braden Swinson at that jack spot?
I love the traits that both those guys play with. You know, Ovi's a guy that you want to talk about playing with focus and attention to detail. He's doing that. Braden brings a great attitude every day. So I'm excited about the trajectory of those guys.
Hey, Coach, right here. We all know that Zee Alexander was a very good player at Southeastern. He was a 2-time All-American at Southeastern. But, you know, since he's transitioned over here, he's looked very impressive over fall camp. Which one of his attributes stands out to you the most?
I think his length and how smart he is. Like, he is a smart player. And, you know, that's a trait we value. You can tell he's a high school quarterback. And his length. I mean, his length helps him on the edge.
What can you say about the defensive line transfers as a whole? Like, what is your impression of them so far?
One, I've been pleased at the buy-in there. Two, I've been pleased with the competition and depth that's brought. Excited about, you know, Jordan. We didn't get a chance to see him in the spring. He's done a nice job. Paris has done a nice job. Jalen Lee has gotten a lot better over the course of the summer. So I would tell you that they bring competition and depth. Yeah, he does, and he has a nice long arm. You know, and he's another guy that's played a lot. And to be honest with you, his history with Coach Kelly makes his transition seamless, right? So I've been very pleased with him.
A lot's been made this offseason about the continuity that's returning, particularly on offense. But you guys as a coaching staff return nearly everybody on the defensive side of the ball. Just in year two, what does the evolution of you guys as a staff look like defensively, and how beneficial is it that you've had, some relative continuity there with the staff?
Yeah, I think that's huge. One, just like the process of how we go about things in practice, you're not explaining and going over everything day to day. You kind of see things from the game in similar lights. You learn people's, when you're going through a new staff, you're learning people's strengths and weaknesses. By having continuity, you find out people's strengths and weaknesses, and you learn to play off of each other. And then there's the personal part of it, right? The more you get to know somebody, the more you care about them. And I think that's real too.
Matt, specifically about DeSean Womack, it seemed like in the spring it was either maybe he's a defensive end, maybe he's a jack long term. Have you actually settled on a position for him? Is it always going to be a case where he can kind of play both?
He's a guy that we're going to be able to move around some.
Hey, Coach. What's been like the biggest, thing that you've had to work through, maybe mentally with the boys, and what are some of the tools that you use to work through them?
I'm sorry, can you give it to me again?
What are some of the biggest mental struggles when it comes to working with the boys, and how have you kind of worked through them with it mentally?
Yeah, I think the first thing is just thinking right? And understanding that your thoughts control your actions, and you control your thoughts, right? And then also just embracing what you hear us over and over saying our traits, but it's real. Embracing our traits of excellence, and embracing the great attitude and laser focus and attention to detail, and not letting yourself get out of the box, so to speak.
What does it mean working with the team when you have a season opener like you've got with Florida State and a team that you opened with last year? I know they're all big, but this is going to get a lot of attention, and the whole world's going to be watching it.
Yeah, I think those games are exciting. They're exciting for a coach. They're exciting for a player. But at the end of the day, I think you have to be short-sighted in this game. And to be honest with you, when you're out on the field, you're worried about the next drill. And when you get off the field, you're worried about correcting the next meeting. Now, there's got to be some farsightedness in the preparation model. And what schemes do we need to get in? How do we need to be taught? But I think you can get too far-sighted in this thing, too. Now, is it exciting that we have great competition in the first game? Absolutely. But I hate to say this, but I'm worried about the trajectory of practice 9 now after 8.
Greg Penn seems like a guy who's going to, once again, be a big part of this defense there at linebacker. What were y'all working with with him coming off of last season, and where do you feel like he's at in his progress?
Yeah, I think the one thing that Greg, you can tell he's much more comfortable in what we do. He's done a good job with his weight. Jake Flint, Dr. Frakes, they've done a great job with him. He's leaner, he's moving better, and I think he's trusting himself more to pull the trigger.
Coach, what have you seen from Deuce Chestnut so far in this fall camp?
Yeah, I think Deuce is a headsy player. And what I have seen is he's got a unique skill set for baiting guys. That's the thing. You can tell Deuce has played football.
You mentioned a little earlier that Ashton Stamps is kind of a football nut. Do you have can you expand on that? Is there sort of an example of him just really being, into the sport and being really heady?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and tell you this. You want to talk about as a staff, the guy came to camp 3 times to LSU to get a scholarship offer. I think that's all you need to tell about Ashton Stamps. He wants to be here, he wants to be great, and he's not scared of competition. And sometimes that's not always true right now, right? And he's a dude that embraces competition every day.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, guys.